We're constantly getting hit with information from all sides. You've got financial news over here, political headlines over there, and economic data everywhere. It can feel totally chaotic, completely disconnected. But what if three seemingly separate signals are all pointing to the exact same thing? That's what we're going to dig in today. This deep, underlying current of uncertainty that's changing pretty much everything. And it all starts with a number. Okay, look at this. $57,947,300. Just take that in for a second. What could that possibly be? And then boom, here's another one. $70,689,577. I mean, these are two massive, very specific numbers. So what on earth are they? Well, we're not looking at a corporate buyout or some government budget. Nope. These are two separate cryptocurrency transactions that happened very recently. This is an incredible amount of money, moving at the speed of light. And it's the sheer scale and speed that's so wild here. That first number, that was over 30,000 Ethereum getting sipped over to a major exchange. The second one, that's over 70 million US dollar coin just being created, minted pretty much out of thin air. And look, this isn't some rare event. Billions of dollars are flying around like this every single day in a kind of parallel financial system that's often way harder to see into than traditional banking. So here's the bottom line. We've got this whole new layer to our financial world, and it's playing by a completely different set of rules. It's incredibly fast, it's totally global, and it brings a kind of volatility and complexity that is just tough to get your head around. That right there, that's our first signal. Okay, so we've got unpredictable money. But hey, what good is money if you don't have any rules? The whole global economy is basically built on a framework of agreements, of expectations. But what happens when that framework itself starts to, well, bend? And that brings us right to our second signal. This is a recent statement from former President Trump. It's a straight-up threat of tariffs, and it's directly tied to a Supreme Court ruling. Now, this isn't just a comment about trade. This is a challenge to the way things have been done for a long, long time in international relations and economic policy. And when you break this statement down, you can really see the dynamic at work. On one side, you have a direct economic threat, tariffs, linked to a court decision. And on the other, you have the reason for it, a brand new interpretation of presidential power. The big takeaway here isn't about any specific policy. It's about the idea that the fundamental rules of the game are suddenly up for debate. So just like with the financial system, it feels like the political rulebook is in flux, right? Those long-standing assumptions we had about trade, about diplomacy, about how power works, they're just not the given they used to be. And that is signal number 2. Now for our third and final signal. Think about it. If the money is moving in new ways and the political rules are changing, how well can we even see what's actually happening in our own economy? What if the very tools we use to measure it all are breaking down? To really get this, we have to talk about something called the Current Population Survey, or the CPS. Now, this might sound boring, but trust me, it's the absolute bedrock for so much of our economic data. The unemployment rate you hear about on the news, how many people are working multiple jobs, almost all of it comes from this one survey. And here's the problem. The survey is breaking. Back in 2009, the response rate was a super solid 94%. Today, it has plummeted to 64%, the lowest it has ever been. That is a staggering 30-point drop. To put it another way, a third of the data we used to count on is just gone. And look, this isn't just some recent dip that's going to bounce back. It's been a steady decline in reliability for over a decade. Sure, the pandemic really knocked it down, but the rate never recovered. In fact, it's even lower now than it was in 2020. Fewer people are answering the call than ever before. So the result here is pretty unavoidable. The economic numbers we see in the headlines, the data that our leaders and businesses depend on to make these huge decisions, well, it's all being built on a foundation that is getting less and less complete by the day. Our economic map is getting seriously blurry. So let's step back. We've got volatile money, unpredictable rules, and unreliable data. On their own, each one is just another headline you might scroll past. But when you start putting them together, they stop being separate stories. They start forming a single, coherent picture. Let's just lay it all out. First, we have a financial system that's becoming way more volatile and a lot harder to track. Second, we have a political system where the established rules just don't feel so certain anymore. And third, the very data we use to navigate our economy is getting weaker and weaker. What this all adds up to is a kind of fog. A fog of uncertainty where the money is changing, the rules of the game are changing, and even the map we're supposed to be using to find our way is becoming blurry and unreliable. And that leaves us with a really critical question. When the systems that we all rely on, our money, our rules, and even our data, are all becoming less and less certain, how in the world do we navigate? How do we make plans for our businesses, for our families, for our own futures, when the world itself is just getting that much harder to see?